Hello. So I thought I would report a little bit about some politics and things that I've observed going on in the world right now. I'm not scared. I'm not freaking out. I'm not crying over this. You shouldn't either, but you should be aware because it is important to be aware of stuff that's going on so you can be informed and go from there about your own personal opinions and your own personal thoughts about it. And if you want to research it more, go for it. If you think I am silly or crazy and want to laugh at me, that is fine. I totally don't care. So, first up, let me tell you about this article. This is from Israel Today, and it says Israeli rabbi says he's already holding meetings with Messiah. So, this Israeli spiritual rabbi, okay, he's a respected one. He's passed on, but there's still another one that's also respected in the Israeli community, and they're into the mystic stuff, so they're Kabbalah. I don't prescribe to that at all. So let me explain a little bit about religion. Sorry, I don't know why I'm so nervous. I've re-recorded this so many times, it's not even funny. I'm such a perfectionist, but yeah, I'm an introvert and I don't get out and talk much, so I need to practice. So anyway, so just like in the Christian realm, there's a lot of offshoots in different denominations. Like there's Methodist, Baptist, Southern Baptist, Episcopal, Lutheran, so many different ones. And then you have Catholicism, and then you have charismatic, non-denomination, Pentecostal, Assemblies of God. You have so many different types of religions or sects. I don't know what you would call that, but basically the common thread with all those that I named is they believe in Jesus as the Messiah. They don't believe that there's going to be another Messiah. That was it. 2,000 years ago, Jesus is the Messiah. Now, let me tell you what Jewish people believe. So, I'm talking about Orthodox Jews. So, the ones that you see that have the curly Q thing going on from their hair, especially in the New York area, or if you go to Israel, you'll see that sect. So, there's Orthodox Jews. There's Kabbalah Jews, there's conservative Jews. I went to a conservative synagogue, but there's a lot of different ones, just like there are for Christian. So the big difference is some are not so perfectionistic and legalistic about beliefs. So Orthodox, they will live and die on the hill about being, absolutely perfectionistic about the beliefs. So basically, let me give you an example. So eating, they cannot mix meat and dairy. So they literally have to have two separate sets of dishes, two different sinks, two different refrigerators, all to adhere to not mixing meat and milk whatsoever. So dairy cannot even be in the same refrigerator or touch the same dish or anything. So you have to have a separate set of everything to be an Orthodox Jew. So it encompasses a lot. Conservative Jews, you still want to try to eat kosher and not eat things that are not kosher. So kosher is basically, it's been blessed by a rabbi and it's prepared in a certain way that is approved by the rabbi. So for example, chicken can't be strangled and it has to be bled out in a certain way that it's drained completely and not still showing, life in that meat. So hopefully that makes sense on that. But Kabbalah, they're more into that mystical, weird stuff that really is barely even Jewish. I'm sorry, but their beliefs are just really strange. And you'll see a lot of people in Hollywood, they'll wear the red little, looks like almost like a friendship bracelet from when you were a kid in the 80s or 90s. It's like a red thread and they'll wear that on their wrist, and that's to let you know they are into that Kabbalah stuff. Like Demi Moore is into that, and other people. And again, it's really not the common practice of Jews that actually believe in the Torah or Old Testament part of the Bible. They do not believe in the Kabbalah stuff. So Orthodox Jews are not Kabbalah. Conservative Jews or conservative synagogue, like what I've been to, do not believe in the Kabbalah stuff. That is their own little entity of weirdness. But so anyway, yes, that headline from Israel Today saying that the rabbi has already been holding meetings with the Messiah. So if you talk to somebody who is an Orthodox Jew, an Israeli Jewish person, so a lot of Israeli Jews are made up of people that came from Russia, some that survived World War II and Germany and being annexed, and Italy. So they survived the Holocaust and survived Auschwitz, and so they went to Israel. But it's not just those that survived the Holocaust. It's also a lot of Jews from Russia and from other parts of the world that make up Israel. And you have to speak Hebrew, which is the national accepted language there, and you have to adhere to Orthodox beliefs, which you can't cook on the Sabbath. They consider that as works, so you can't even light a fire. You can't use your cell phone because that's considered similar to using works. You can't be doing anything that's considered works or doing things that require you to do things that seem like you're not resting is the whole point. That is a law that even us as Christians, if you're a Christian, should be adhering to, not in such a dramatic way, but we should respect the Sabbath and rest. That is the whole point of the Sabbath, is just resting. So long story short, what I was trying to get to is when I've dated Israeli Jewish guys and have talked to Orthodox Jews or talked to other Jews that are, even from the conservative synagogue, they believe that Jesus was a prophet. They don't think that he was a figment of imagination or a made-up historical figure. They believe he was real. They believe Jesus was real, but what they believe is Jesus was a prophet. They do not believe he was a Messiah. So I know a lot of people are probably shocked by that. I was shocked by it. I thought that they didn't believe in him. I thought that they probably thought Jesus was similar to Santa Claus, that he was just a fake, thing that Christians made up, as an excuse to do the Crusades and kill people that didn't have the same beliefs. But they do, in fact, believe that Jesus was real, but they do not believe he was the Messiah. They believe he was the prophet. So, or just a prophet, similar to, Noah and the other prophets of the Bible, Jonah, Isaiah, Jeremiah. So just a regular prophet is what they thought of him as. So the fact that this is a headline in Israel Today, so an article for this published, respected journal that is read by Jewish people and Israelis, that these rabbis think they have been talking to the Messiah. And the article goes on further to say that he is going to reveal himself very soon. So my personal belief system says that's probably the Antichrist, which kind of blows my mind because I always thought, I guess I was a pre-trib person. I don't know. I know that's confusing too. If you're not a Christian, there's people that can go into apologetics and argue all kinds of stuff that are Christians. and they Bible thump and beat you over the head with legalistic, boring stuff. And I usually walk away. I don't care. I have my own personal beliefs. I have my own relationship with Jesus and with God, and I don't care about their apologetic stuff and their pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib stuff. But my belief, what I thought growing up, was that Jesus would come and get us all, and then after we left, then the Antichrist would reveal himself, and they would have 7 years of prosperity, whatever 7 years is. I mean, the Bible is kind of weird on days, right? So, it says in the Old Testament in Genesis that it took, God a day to make, separate the waters from the land, to separate day from night, things like that. A day for God is kind of like, if you think about it in the realm of Doctor Who, it's timey-wimey weird stuff. It could be a day, could be 7 years, that could be 1,000 years, it could be 1,000,000 years. We don't understand the concept of time because we're not a timeless being like God is, But my point is, I thought we were going to be gone and not have to deal with the Antichrist and all that stuff that's going to happen with the Christians getting persecuted and everything that you learned that's going to happen. But I don't know, maybe I have it backwards. Maybe the Antichrist is going to raise up, and maybe a lot of us that don't follow the Antichrist, maybe we will, we'll lose our heads and be persecuted and murdered publicly for not believing in this Messiah. But he is going to do some fake magic, which to me goes along with the Kabbalah stuff, but he's going to do some fake miracle stuff. I wouldn't doubt it if he made someone walk that was crippled, or bring someone back from the dead. Satan is really good at counterfeiting. He counterfeits everything that God does. But Satan is not God's, equal. So it's not like yin yang or black and white. Satan is just a fallen angel. He was created by God. He is not anywhere near God's power. And I actually would not be surprised if his powers were not as strong as some of the archangels like Michael that you heard about in, the book of Daniel, for example. So I would not be surprised if Satan's powers were not all that. It says in the Bible that in the end, which is in Revelations, in the end we're going to go, oh, that's Satan? That's the great deceiver and liar? Like, we are going to be so shocked when we see him that he's Satan, like I imagine, I hate to say this, but I imagine Satan is like Danny DeVito, like he's nothing, but he's not stupid. I do believe, he's been around for a long time, he saw us being made in creation, so he's very jealous of that. He was thrown down to heaven, from heaven to earth as lightning, so it happened really quickly. God didn't even have to think about it. He was like, boom, you're gone. You're out of heaven. He still has access to heaven, though, because it talks about that he is the great accuser. He goes up to heaven, and God asks him, what have you been doing? And he says, I've been roaming, back and forth around the earth. And he constantly accuses, and Jesus intercedes for us. Jesus is basically like our lawyer without all the deficits. So without all the negativity of being a lawyer, Jesus stands in the gap and actually mitigates for us. So the fact that we might actually have to deal with the Antichrist blows my mind. I'm kind of surprised by that, but we are supposed to watch for the signs. There's a lot of signs that Jesus told us to watch for. If you read, Matthew, well, any of the Gospels, but Matthew, I've been reading that, and he talks about, look for the signs. And the biggest sign that Jesus is ready to come is when the gospel has been literally preached throughout the earth, so that everyone can have a fair shake at going, okay, I believe in Jesus, or, you know what, I hear you about Jesus, but I am not going to believe in him. So he wants everybody, though, to have a fair chance to know who he is. So he is the most famous person. For the Beatles to say that they're more famous than Jesus is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Jesus has been talked about for literally thousands of years. The Beatles, 60 years or however long they've been around. So it's just, there's no comparison. So everybody, so even that island that attacks any visitor that tries to come to their island, even that island will receive the message of Christ somehow, or already have somehow. Jesus is going to make sure that happens before he comes to collect us and get us out of this earth, So, when it's a shame that somebody ruined that. There was one person that went to that island and ruined it for any actual good person, any actual good Christian missionary to go to that island and help them learn about Jesus, because he enslaved them and cannibalized them and literally made that island so afraid of outsiders that that's why they attack anybody that tries to come near their island, which, when you read about it, it really is sad. So, but even that island, as far out as they are from civilization and scared of any outsider, they're even going to be made aware of Christ. So when everyone has had a chance to hear Jesus Christ and hear the message and have that choice and opportunity to choose, that's when Jesus is coming to get us. That is the final sign. So wars, rumors of wars, we're in that right now. But the Green World Order, look that up. So that's a fun one. So right now, too, and what recently has been happening over the past few months, Biden has been trying to negotiate and, wheel and deal with Saudi Arabia and even Mexico for oil, because all of our reserves are about to be empty. So he is trying to wheel and deal. And so with Mexico, he is making all kinds of promises to that Mexican president. So no wonder we have a migrant issue. No wonder the open border thing. And he casually mentions about the concerns of fentanyl and meth being brought in, and, didn't even mention sex trafficking. Basically he doesn't care, and then he's like, I will make more citizens so they can, become legal citizens and work for our companies and send money home to your country. So I've already legalized 200,000. I'll double that. So he's wheeling and dealing hard. Look it up if you don't believe me. It's basically, any article, or you can even go to the White House site and see what Biden's been up to, because the press secretary sure isn't going to tell you anything. She's just a spinner. She's a spin doctor, just like all of them in DC. But that's what he's been up to. He's been wheeling and dealing with Mexico. And if you didn't read my blog, I had a previous one and I shut it down because I got paranoid about this. A couple of guys that were stalking me, and it made me uncomfortable, and so I just did away with it. And I had so many readers but not very many subscribers, which is frustrating. But I had a heavy amount of readers for my former blog. Now I've got a blog that I really don't tend to, because hardly anyone reads it, and I kind of lost passion. But many years ago, I was looking into things, and I saw that there's going to be basically two main superhighways. So if you Google superhighway, you will see Canada's plan, along with America and along with Mexico, to create superhighways that connect straight from Mexico through to Canada. So you tell me, does that sound like a closed border? And that's been the plan since even Trump's time. So Trump with his, we need a wall, we're going to do all this stuff. The super highway has been in a plan since I think even before Trump took office, but definitely well into while he's been in office. So if you're frustrated with all the construction on certain highways, I think I-35, Interstate 35 is one of them. But that is the reason why, is because they're working on super highways that connect Mexico straight through Canada. And there was one person that said that he believes there's talks of the entire Central America and South America all uniting like the EU. So Mexico, Canada, America, and I guess I would even include past that, so Venezuela, so all of South America, into North America and Central America, all connected like the EU, and then us joining the EU, so all one world government. There's also talks right now that Biden is going to implement a digital currency in December. So I'm not sure about that one. I haven't had time to research it. I just saw someone comment about it, and I thought that was interesting. But our dollar is, I keep telling you, the dollar is not worth anything anymore. It's like pesos are more valuable than our dollar. We don't have the gold or silver to back the money that the federal government has printed. And they've printed so much money, it's literally made the dollar not valuable. And so I wonder if this was purposeful to create the digital currency. But basically, I think they are working on phasing out actual money and forcing us to do digital currency. And they'll probably use counterfeiting and all kinds of crap like that, you know, as excuses to do this. I mean, they make a lot of excuses to justify a lot of stuff that they do that's not right. And they spin it. And then you see the people that are just, you know, I blame it on the education system that they have deliberately dumbed down. They've dumbed it down for a reason. They've allowed a heavy amount of drugs into America for a reason. They want us numb and stupid. And it's because they want us to easily be led astray with all the stuff that they do. You know, COVID was a good trial to see about that. And then speaking of COVID, Boston University making a more deadly strand, so it's got a higher chance of killing people. That's lovely. And I understand, before you come at me, I understand part of investigating and understanding to make a cure for a disease is studying the disease. But to take parts of it off of the most deadly strain, which I had that strain back in January, the Omicron strain, and mixing it and actually creating a more fatal strain of COVID. I just... And then going back to the Green World Order, guess who is supposedly going to be the spearhead of being green? China. So that's interesting. And you consider the fact that China bought up a ton of farmland in Texas, and then Bill Gates buying up farmland all around America, and Canada buying up a lot of land in America. And it's purposeful. It's to take away our food so that we are more dependent on the government. This is totally Stalin. This is totally Stalin. We're going to be in breadlines before you know it. It's crazy. It's crazy. And you can think I'm crazy for saying this, but I really think that's where we're heading. I mean, the prices are skyrocketing. You know, no one's talking about how bad it is with housing, but rent is crazy high. The average apartment, $2,000. And it's per month. It's crazy. And you're like living in something that was made in the 70s and 80s, and it's small and probably has a, you know, lead and asbestos and crap, and they're upping that and not, you know, upgrading the apartment and giving you great amenities. It's crap. And then buying a house, there's like no shot of me becoming a homeowner. I've had to come to the realization and acceptance of that possibility. So, and they're taxing the middle class like there's no tomorrow because they don't have enough money. They're spending it faster than they make it. Where the federal government, the feds printing money, they're responsible for part of this, but also Biden's sending billions to the Ukraine. Again, I'm sorry about your war, but that has nothing to do with America. And if anything, if you want to come here as a refugee or something, I would not want children to die, but I don't know. I just don't believe that we should be involved in any way in other people's wars. We really need to keep it out of it. And I think the only reason that America and England or the UK are constantly having their noses in other countries' businesses and helping to instigate wars, especially the CIA and the Special Service of the UK, is because of oil. So it's out of greed, and it's not for anything else. When the CIA, kind of like when Columbus, discovered America, he told the royal Spaniard royalty that, I discovered a lot of gold in Cuba. He wasn't even actually in India like he thought he was. And he promised, there's like so much gold, you just won't even believe it. Finance me like more fleets of ships and more prisoners. And by the way, these people are really passive. They don't even know what a bullet is. They will like totally bow down to anything you tell them to do. And the poor Native Americans that used to inhabit Cuba, they all died on the ships en route to become slaves to Spain. That's really, really sad. So, so he just basically, that's the reality of how, different countries used to be conquered, is going to war with them and enslavement. And it's still, unfortunately, going on today. If you go to Africa, and that's why there's so many Somalia people in America, especially in Minnesota and in Texas, is because warring tribes will steal the young males and keep them for themselves to go after other tribes and war against them. And so they rape the women, they kill the children, but they will steal like the teenage boys and young looking boys. So young men is, I don't think past 22 survive the wars that they do and enslavement. So still going on. And it just shows that without Christ, there's just nothing but evil in us. We just want to kill each other. So that's why it's important to have that, because the more Christ in you, the less of you there is. We in ourselves are so bad and so nasty and so evil, and there's nothing you could do to change it unless you become closer to God, because as you read the Bible, it transforms you and it teaches you. Now, someone like me that grew up in foster care, that always has this feeling of being rejected, and it's really hard for me. It's really hard, especially when I've wrapped up my identity in working and school, and so when I get rejected despite the fact I've worked my ass off, or struggling with a class or something, which that statistics class for my grad school, that was not a fair situation, right? But I have to remember, it's not, God doesn't favor people that have it easier than me. He actually does have compassion. I mean, that's why there's stories in the Bible about the woman at the well that was a Samaritan. That's why there was a woman with issue of blood. He is not a respecter of persons. He picked fishermen that were ordinary. He picked a tax collector. He picked people that were ordinary to become extraordinary. He did not favor people. He did not pick out the top rabbis and Pharisees to become his disciples. He picked people that were already humbled and willing to surrender everything to him. And so if you keep praying, God will answer your prayers. It just takes a good attitude. When you have your attitude right with God and you're thanking him instead of going, come on, God, and not complaining, which I've done my fair share of. And I'm sure that God understands, just like a child, when you hear kids at Walmart and they're screaming because they didn't get their way, the parents don't reject them and go, okay, I'm done with you forever. God doesn't turn his back on us when we complain. It's just, it's a lot easier for prayers to get heard if we come at him with respect and love and appreciation and gratitude, especially since he put his life up for us. He willingly laid down his life for us. He willingly allowed people to beat him beyond recognition before he even was hung on the cross. So the fact that he allowed the whippings, for them to spit on him, for them to pull his beard out in chunks off his face and beat on him. I mean, he was beaten beyond recognition. And then they very much disrespected him and shamed him with putting a crown of thorns on his head, which had to hurt, and then taking his clothes to humiliate and shame him, and then mocking him with the here's Christ, here's the Messiah on his as his label for his sin. It just it really does. It's heartbreaking when you really, really see what Jesus went through for us. So I'm not trying to be preachy, believe what you will, but I did want you to hear it so that you have your choice, an informed choice. I respect whatever it is that you want to believe, but from somebody who has nothing but my spiritual beliefs, I do think that spirituality is extremely important, especially nowadays, with things that's only going to get harder. It's not going to get easier. We are going to see more hardships. We're going to see more states become as awful as California with the high homelessness. People already are losing housing. They can't afford it. If you're on unemployment is not enough to pay rent. It's crazy, and it's stressful, and it is the way it is. You have to have faith. You have to be patient that God is going to take care of you, and that is the only way to get through, is through hope. And that's why it's important to have Christian values, because without hope, you are at a loss. You will get depressed, you will want to kill yourself, or you will become bitter and want to kill everybody else. So if you want to know why there's so many killings, it's not because of the gun, it's because of the heart of the person. So with all that, look up New Green World Order. This is not a new thing from AOC. It's been in the works for a long time. That's why somebody backed her to become a congresswoman, which is ridiculous. She's just a mouthpiece to speak on their behalf. They chose her for a reason. So you got to remember that. People in power are chosen for a reason. They really are. And we have really pretty much little to say over it, But Germany trying to go green, I mean, that was a bust. Look at us. We are not handling going green well at all. Our reserves for oil are almost done, and he completely shut down anything that we could do to become independent. So the pipeline that, and I get why some people were upset about it. I get why Native Americans are upset about it. It was going through their land and things. If we could just find other places to drill, there's plenty of places to drill in America. There's Texas, there's the Gulf of Texas, Gulf of Mexico in Texas, there's Oklahoma, where a lot of people go for oil drilling. But, it has slowed down, and it's not good. and for us to have to grovel and wheel and deal. If you do this, we'll do that. If you give us oil, we'll do this. We'll have to let even more migrants and illegals come into our country with more fentanyl and meth. Yay. More sex trafficking. Yay. More Mexican men just working and doing illegal, shoddy work because greedy corporations will not hire regular Americans that are actually trained and are working on their apprenticeship in these skills to work as carpenters. If you're wondering why houses are so shoddy, look at what they're hiring. They go to these, there's literally, like, if you go over to a gas station and that's near those daily labor jobs in the poor areas, there's things called day labor. And so day labor is basically for people that are homeless or trying to get a job for a day. And so usually contractors will go over there and pick up a bunch of them that are looking to do work for a day. And Mexicans will literally be across the street because they can't be there because they're illegal and they're not legal to work in the United States. They don't have a driver's license, yada, yada, yada. So they'll be at the gas station across the street, and there'll be a big group of them. And usually contractors will come in a truck and scoop them all up, and they'll have a bunch of beer and pay them very little so they can send all that money home, and they'll drink while they're working. And so shoddy workmanship, thanks to greedy corporate housing companies, and also corporations are the reason why the housing companies are selling the houses for so much. So a house that was $100K just a couple of years ago, now almost $400K. It's crazy, and that's all thanks to corporate people that are greedy, that are shooting up those prices and causing the housing market crisis. And so all this is connected. There is a reason why more and more Americans are going to be suffering, and soon to be, our situation's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And the fact that our dollar is becoming worthless, and we might have to become digital for all of our money. I mean, when you think about it, it kind of is digital anyway. I mean, when I get my money out of my bank, I don't see physical dollars unless I go to the branch and withdraw some money from, the branch drive-through. So when you think about it that way, and paying with a debit card, that's a digital sort of. And then paying bills online, that's digital. A lot of companies now and bills will auto deduct from your bank account, so you don't even see what's happening. They just do it automatically, and a lot of companies will not let you pay them. You have to agree to let them digitally take that money out of your account, whether you have it or not. Like AT&T is one of them. So and companies that are for electricity in Texas also are that way. So interesting things going on. I do believe we are losing more and more and more, and the government will continue to get bigger, and I think we're heading more to become more like what Stalin envisioned for Russia when he was, trying to create his, great vision of being a industrialized country, meanwhile putting his own people in gulags, and that included women and children, and so literally sending them to their deaths. So I would not be surprised with the continued divide between Democrats and Republicans, and Biden keeps sneaking in the hate. I would not be surprised if our own people went after each other more, and there was a gulag situation eventually here, so the hate will not get less, it will just get more as they increase the propaganda and do the same tricks that Stalin did. And it's really scary that that's the playbook. If you look at their game, that's the playbook. They are going by all of Stalin's rules, and I just hope that it fails just like Stalin. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your evening or morning, whenever time it is that you watch this.